The best part of the football season? Checking out the post-game stats. Which wideouts scored more than 2 touchdowns? Which quarterbacks threw for less than 350 yards? Think you can pick who will do what before kickoff? Then play Pick 6 from DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, select between 2 and 6 players, and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. It's that simple. And for all our first-time Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers, play $5 on your first pick set, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code BALLERS. That's code BALLERS for new customers to play $5 on your first pick set and get $50 in Pick 6 credits only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
This episode is brought to you by Vitamin Water. So much of what the world is obsessed with starts out in New York City. It's a place full of style and character that has something for everyone. With a range of flavors to meet any kind of taste, it's no wonder Vitamin Water was born there. Colorful, flavorful, anything but boring, Vitamin Water injects a daily dose of vibrancy into a watered-down life. Grab a Vitamin Water today. Vitamin Water is a registered trademark of Glasso.
The DFS studio is brought to you by DraftKings. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome on back. It's the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew, the Panthers' public enemy #1 Betz.
The haters, man, they're after me. No, I make one tweet. I don't make any statements, any opinions.
Just a factual piece of information.
I just said the facts of what they've paid their running backs or what they've invested in the running back position over the last couple of years. You know, they threw a bag at Miles Sanders. I get it. It's a different regime. Throw a bag at Miles Sanders. Didn't work out. Take Jonathan Brooks with a premium pick, 46th overall. Remains to be seen if that's going to work out. Chuba Hubbard, 4 years. Might as well. And you know, like, NFL Twitter is so funny, man. I love it. I really do. People are so passionate. People love their teams. But there was a lot of Panthers fans that were not happy with me today. And I didn't even listen to opinion on what I thought of the matter. It's just, I listed the contracts and people were just so mad. So I'm happy for Chuba. Like, he's played so well this year. He's like top 10 in every important metric. He's been great. He's been great for 2 years, really. So he deserves to get paid. But if I was building an NFL team, personally, this is not what I would be doing. That's my only, that's my take. But yeah, the Panthers Twitter was in the DMs today. They were not pleased.
I will say this as your friend, what were you thinking with, again, going against an organization like that that's made so many great calls? I mean, I would never, ever do anything like, okay, so here's the thing. I've wrestled with the exact same fan group before, and it's not a Falcons take. There's no NFL take here. It's really just human beings that they see a stat that is just I think people don't realize that statistics, you can bend them in whatever way you want. But when you just say, this player caught this many passes, that's what it is. It's called an agnostic statistic. It's not going one way or the other, just what it is. I have shared those with Bryce Young this offseason, and man, they did not like that at all. And it wasn't to dunk. It was just to say, this player has done this. Not, this is what this means. But you started off your day choosing violence, Betz.
Apparently. And I was having a very productive Thursday. Got up early, which we're recording this the day after my baby girl Collins, that's the youngest of the three, slept through the night for the first time. So I'm coming off a high on Friday morning.
I'm clapping for you through the microphone, my friend. It's a big deal.
You know, the coffee's flowing. We're feeling good. Make breakfast for the family. Got a good night's sleep. Went to the grocery store nice and early for the fam. Come home. I'm grinding away. And all of a sudden, these Carolina Panthers haters, man, they're just trying to bring me down. But you know what? We have a great 10-game slate on tap. We just had an awesome Thursday night football game. So I'm not going to let the haters bring me down, Kyle.
My neighbor's actually a Panthers fan, and he has the most measured approach about stuff. He's just like, we don't know what we're doing. I don't like our owner. It's like, oh, that seems pretty rational. But you got to fight for the jerseys, right? It's all about whatever color jersey you wear. You just got to believe, and you just got to go for it no matter what. But on this episode, we will talk about Week 10, give our cash picks, the games that we want to stack. There's 3 or 4 games that we really like this week on a condensed slate, right? Like the players that we talk about now are going to be very much elevated in roster percentage. And so we're going to help you kind of identify some place to have leverage. We'll give our slate breakers. And I believe you messaged me earlier that you, quote, love my slate breaker choice this week.
I might be biased, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah. And we'll go a little Borg Betz, which has also stayed hot for most of the season. So got a good episode for us. We mentioned this on Tuesday's episode. I will mention it again because we got a memo. There's a memo on my desk this morning that was from corporate that said, hey, make sure that you mention that the DFS Pass, dfspass.com, is half off right now. And I don't know about you, Betz. It's only November 8th. There's still a lot of the season left. There's still the playoffs. We still have a lot of work. It's not like we're doing less work.
I'm not doing half the work, I'll tell you that.
I'm not either. So I don't know if that memo made it to HR's desk, but whoever they are, whoever is giving these policies, we're here to push back. And so for now, we'll just say for now, you can get the DFS Pass for half off, dfspass.com, and then even more off if you use the promo code DFSPOD to get all of our picks. We mention that every single week, and then we see this week, it just laid right in front of us that we have to mention that it's half off.
You get that in the fax machine this morning?
Yeah.
The memo?
Yep, print it right off.
Classic. That's classic. That's classic corporate right there, I'll tell you what.
Wasting paper just to let us know what's going on. Yeah, we don't even use messaging or Slack or anything for our company. Everything just comes in through fax.
Can you imagine?
All the stuff. I mean, at some point, somebody had a job whose job was to send stuff. And now we're a media company, so it makes sense that we can do everything. But at some point, somebody in the show business said, I'm sending all the sports informations and stat through the fax line. However that works.
We're too young, man. We'll never know.
I do. I have fax thing. Have you ever done a fax before?
Oh, yes, I've done it. But like it's been 4 years, 5 years.
It's been a while. And I know that there are people listening that are laughing about it. And then there's also other people listening and saying, no, what is that again? And my kids will never have to do that.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. So
times are changing.
DFSpass.com. We'd love to be able to converse with you. You also get access to our DFS and props Discord channels. So if you want to get alerted when we give a prop, that's the way you get to do it. So DFSpass.com and chat with us on Discord. You and I are going to jump straight into our cash picks.
Straight cash, homie.
I need your help, my friend, because the last 2 weeks have not been as kind to me in the cash trades. I think I was flowing for the first 6-7 weeks. But I do notice a very clear correlation that if I am busy over the weekend, if I have some family engagement, DFS does not go well for me.
Yeah, it's impossible to have both. You know, you either got to ignore your family for 4 months during football season and really, have a good DFS season, or spend time with your kids and your family and pay for it. So you make the choice, Kyle.
Is that how Collins actually started to go to sleep? As you started spending time with her after not placing your NBA props this week?
We'll see. Maybe. I can't say that out loud in case the wife is listening or listens back to this. So no comment.
I did take a fun little family. I took Truman, my youngest, who's 5 years old, to the dentist yesterday. He's a very, very timid kid. Like Truman compared to Houston, they're just very different. But Truman was just like, first question, are they going to drill? Are they going to drill? Like, no, buddy, they're just going to clean your teeth. And then it was a long conversation just to get him to do it. And then He had a great old time. He liked the dentist. He even told my wife, he goes, that was a very nice dentist, man. So
Dentist man.
So
I love Truman.
Truman my son is a trip. He's also a vibe. He's both.
A trip and a vibe.
He's a good dude. All right. Glad you could share some parenting experiences with us. Cash picks this week. At quarterback, I'm seeing 3 tiers, and then somehow, some way, we just found a 4th tier of quarterback that I didn't even know existed, but we're going to mention it. So starting at the top, if you want to play Jalen Hurts in cash at 7.8, do it. He's been awesome. They have a huge team implied total. They're playing a team called the Cowboys, who apparently are still in the NFL, and apparently they're trying to play defense. They're the worst defense in the NFL. We'll talk about that game and some ways to exploit later, but it's Hurts. Then in the middle tier, you can play Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold. Then Justin Herbert is somebody we talked about on Tuesday as a salary saver. And now there is a man known as Mac Daddy Jones at 4.4 at home that is now available to us. We played Gardner last week, but I mean, this guy is staring us right in the face. The peak of athletic physique, by the way.
Oh my, yes. If you haven't seen the college photo of McCorkle Jones during his days at Alabama, shirtless with a stogie after a nice win, it's on my Twitter. All kidding aside. Yeah, it's an interesting slate at quarterback, right? Because you can make an argument to me about any of these guys price adjusted. It's like, obviously, if you have all the money in the world, Hurts has been incredible, but I want to play Kamara. I want to play Breece Hall. I want to play Justin Jefferson. And to make those guys fit in your lineup, you probably need to drop down into either the 6K range, 5,200 for Justin Herbert, or completely punt it off with Mac Jones. Let's start with Mac Jones just real quick, because when the news broke that Trevor Lawrence was not going to play, the line very quickly moved in favor of the Vikings. Obviously, it was start of the week. It was a 4-point spread. It's all the way out to 7 as of now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that get to 7.5. The game total dropped by a couple of points, specifically on the Jaguars team total. So the expectations for the offense are obviously downgraded. We're not sure on Gabe Davis yet. We know Christian Kirk's on IR. So for me, I see a lot of pass against a Brian Flores defense where he wants to blitz. They've been very good. They're getting healthier. They're almost certainly going to stop the run. It does look like a situation where it's not going to go great for Mac Jones, who obviously is giving you 0 on the ground. So he's a price play, and there's not much more positive to say about it. Now, maybe they get behind by 2 touchdowns or something, and they're just chucking, and there's just volume. We've seen that against Minnesota this year, and he's still got Brian Thomas, and he's still got Evan Ingram. So I think it's viable. But man, I'm gun shy after the Gardner experience last week and a couple other situations. So what are your thoughts on Mac Jones? I think it's really important.
I need someone who can run at that price point. And at least with Gardner, we know that he has been able to run a little bit in the past. And I just can't do it against a defense that's just been awesome. I was going to dare myself to look up Mac Jones splits against the blitz, and I just couldn't do it. It's it doesn't actually matter very much. So I don't know if I'll be dropping that low. I think Purdy is so safe. If you just want to lock in 15, 16 points with a ceiling for more, Darnold feels safe, as crazy as that sounds. He's been pretty consistent aside from one dud game in London, but I think it's just going to come down to that middle tier of Herbert for me.
Yeah, and the thing about Mac Jones too is it's only $800 to get up Justin Herbert. So if you were saving $1,500 off the other quarterbacks, then it's okay, maybe it's worth it. But my inclination is to at least find the 800 to get to Herbert, and if not play Herbert, then yeah, one of these 6K guys. Purdy looks awesome. We're going to talk about that game in a bit, but man, I love the Niners this week. Yes. Tampa was on the field on Monday night on a short week for over 80 plays against Mahomes. On a short week, now you get the Niners off of a bye week, likely with McCaffrey back in some capacity. The wide receivers should be healthier. The Bucs still have major issues defensively as far as their injuries go in the secondary. It all points to a massive game for the Niners. So I love Purdy. Sam Darnold's in a great spot, but Herbert to me is kind of the best quote unquote punt play. I
don't think you have to go there with Mac Jones this week. I'm looking at the way that builds are, and I'm not really worried about him getting to 30% or something. And he's going to end up being 15% or so if people are feeling spunky, because it is fun to build that way. Don't get me wrong. Last week, I played Gardner because I could fit in a bunch of studs in my lineup. It did not work out so well. So those are our plays right now. You can get them in our best plays at part of the DFS pass. At running back, the guys that I really like are in the same game. So Kamara, who's going to get the ball 1,000 times against Atlanta, and then Bijan playing against the Saints. Kamara, do you know how many opportunities he had last week?
I didn't until I was writing up the cash article in the DFS pass. I was like, oh my goodness. He touched the ball 35 times in that game. 35 times. And now we don't have Chris Olave. Like, it's unreal. So I know he's 8,100, man, but kind of feels like the first person you put in your lineup this week.
I would agree. I think Kamara is just an awesome play, even 8.1 at home. I think his receptions had been at like 7 or 6 for the past like 5 games. Bijan is a high 4 play. I feel like we're always wanting Bijan to get to 25 or 30, and he kind of ends up a lot in that 20 range, but he's top 20 DK points in 4 straight, averaging just under 23 opportunities per game over the last 4, and Atlanta is number 1 in adjusted line yards. So I really like Bijan a lot. I have a hard time playing both of those running backs in the same game because the player we talked about earlier this week, Aaron Jones, just feels like he's going to be the cash play this week, and he's a little bit cheaper than Bijan. I feel like they're similar players who aren't going to get insane volume, but both efficient. So Aaron Jones, $1,000 cheaper than Bijan, is probably our top running back, but I also like Breece a lot at 7.6.
Yeah, there's a ton of good running back plays on the slate. You mentioned Kamara, you mentioned Bijan. Aaron Jones, we talked a lot about him on Tuesday, but awesome spot against the Jaguars. The spread, like I said, moved in favor of the Vikings. So again, probably a positive game script here for Jones. And then Breece Hall, right? Who in his 4 games this last month, 87% of the snaps, 82%, 74, 72%. Touch counts, 23, 18, 17, 17. So you're probably getting 17 to 20-ish opportunities against this Cardinals defense. Really a lot to like there, right? So those guys all look really good. I'll also throw out too, James Conner in that same Jets game looks really strong. I don't know if he's like the top tier for me this week. Like if I'm stuck in the 6th tier range and I got to pick one, like it's Aaron Jones, no question. But James Conner is just over the last 3 weeks averaging 21.3 touches. And last week was such a weird situation where he was shredding, gets tackled inside the 5-yard line, comes out for a concussion check, loses the touchdown. So he's one of those guys that I've kind of have circled as a regression candidate here in the touchdown department. The way that Arizona is almost certainly going to play against the Jets is to run and lean on James Conner. So I love James Conner. Maybe not as much of like a top tier cash play, but you can play him in cash, but I like him a lot for tournaments.
Any thoughts on DeAndre Swift? 6.5 at home. I know that he is one of those players that when you start to trust him, you get burned, but he had 4 straight great games, and he was the only part of the Chicago offense last week, speaking of Arizona, that like he was competent. He also saw enough reception work that's like, okay, he's good. They're favored at home. It's a defense that you can run on. I feel like DeAndre Swift is also at a good price point that I almost prefer him over Connor.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's a fair take. Yeah, Swift's been good. Credit where credit's due. Like in the first 3 weeks, it was pretty much a train wreck, but since then he's been good. You know, the Patriots are not a scary matchup. I will say my only concern on the Bears just in general is they might be playing this game without their bookend tackles. They just lost the right tackle to an MCL injury. He's out for 3 to 4 weeks. Their left tackle, as of our recording, looks questionable. And the Patriots are a top 5 team in pressure rate. Caleb has been abysmal under pressure. So like, I just feel like there's systemic risk for the offense as a whole. But all that aside, Swift has been very good this year. So yeah, I think he's in play. He kind of always is like on the fringe of cash games, but he never gets clicked for cash. And so he always ends up being like an interesting tournament play because he's kind of in that like secondary chalk bucket. So I don't know if I'll go there in cash, but he's definitely interesting for sure.
At wide receiver, I want to play Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson's the greatest wide receiver in the league. And he could be of all time. Like he's just unbelievable. It's at Jacksonville. Are you willing to pay that price though? Like, do you feel like you have to? Because he's one of those players when you're building your lineup and you start to think about it like in head-to-heads or in double-ups. Like, I do not want to get buried by this player.
Man, taking on the Jaguars. Second highest rated man coverage in the league. You cannot cover Justin Jefferson. Even if you double team him, you can't cover him, right? So he's going off in this game. It's just a matter of to what degree, and do you need him in cash is the question mark at 8,800. The way that I've been looking at builds to start the week, he is not in there. It's not that he's a bad play. He's an incredible play. But it's just that if you play him, it's very tough to fit, 3 of these running backs that we love. You probably have to play Mac Jones, which we've talked about the concerns there. So it's a decision tree of like how important is he on the slate to you and your builds. Right now, I lean the running backs, but man, across, I usually play like 8 lineups or so. in tournaments across those lineups. Like I can't imagine not having some exposure to Jefferson this week in this matchup.
Yeah, so he's going to be the high-priced player. And then when you get in the 7K range, we talked about Garrett Wilson. If you don't play Brees, I feel like I want to play one of those two. They're really in a really good spot against Arizona. Debo at 6.9, I think, is a strong play. I'm not playing McCaffrey this week in cash. I'll probably play him in some tournaments just because he's fun. But Debo at 6.9 is underpriced. Also, Juwan Jennings for the 49ers is only 5.1. And we'll talk about that game, but like when he's on the field, he's utilized 25% targets per route run for Juwan Jennings when he's been on the field this year. That's tied for Kittle for the highest on the team. Now that'll shift with CMC there, but it's a great matchup against Tampa Bay. So I want a 49er in my cash lineup. If it's Purdy, if it's Debo, Juwan Jennings, I mean, you could play Kittle too in cash if you want to. He's been that consistent, but those are some of my favorite in the high price range.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm right there with you. If you drop down a little bit further, Josh Downs is super interesting this week. We know we're getting Flacco again, which we talked about on the Tuesday show, like invites a wide range of outcomes. Can go great, can also go terrible. But regardless of how the game goes for the Colts as a whole, Josh Downs is the dude for Joe Flacco. He has seen 9+ targets in all 4 of Joe Flacco's games this year for a 25+% target share in each of those games. So he is the dude. And Michael Pittman, to be honest, I'm not sure he even plays in this game. We had the back issue that was like a month ago roughly, and he kind of played through it. Now he's not practicing Wednesday and Thursday as Michael Pittman. Steichen called him week to week. So the health is trending in the wrong direction, in my opinion, for Michael Pittman. So taking on the Bills, we're going to talk about that game, so I'm not going to spoil it. In theory, feels like a difficult matchup, but it's kind of a good spot for Josh Downs. So we'll talk about that more in a second. But at 6,200, I think he's good even if Pittman's in, but if Pittman is out, he looks phenomenal.
We built this city.
It's funny when you talked about Pittman, you mentioned Steichen called him week to week. Like I heard that as like Steichen saying like, this man is just weak. He's just weak to weak. He's just such a
W-E-A-K. He's weak to weak.
Come on, Pity City, get it together. Yeah, so Downs is a great play at 6,200. Lad McConkey, if you want to play him at 5,900, another PPR option. I think I prefer just to be able to get up to Downs for 300 or more. DeAndre Hopkins is going to get a lot of steam after what he did on Monday night. So he's at 5.3. His salary was just abandoned. I think it's hard to figure out who the cheap guys are this week. Like in the past, we played Cedric Tillman and guys like that. I think it's a Bucs wide receiver. And if I knew that Jalen McMillan was going to play, and he was spotted at practice on Thursday, at 4.2, he would be the guy who's got 15 targets the last 2 games played. He sat out last week. So I feel like he's my lean right now, but I'm still waiting to figure out who the other wide receivers are I'm going to play.
Yeah, for sure. That's the key in this kind of cheap range. Most likely is going to be a Bucs wide receiver. Sterling Shepard saw 5 targets. Almost all of them came on that last drive, though, when they were in garbage time against the Chiefs. But he's been missing practice. Jalen McMillan, not sure. So just stay tuned to the DFS Pass and best plays. We'll get you guys covered there. But I think that's the spot to monitor. Other than that, I don't see a lot of cheap options at wide receiver this week.
Yeah, you're paying down at quarterback most likely in that middle range, or Herbert at 5.2. There are punt options at other positions, so I don't know if you have to go dumpster diving in the 3K range this week.
Yeah, probably not.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
This episode is brought to you by Vital Farms. Vital Farms is keeping it bullshit-free. Pasture-raised eggs means their hens enjoy outdoor access year-round while foraging on a buffet of local grasses. You can even find the farm name of where the eggs were laid on the side of each carton. Vital Farms knows you'll taste the difference of eggs made with fresh air and sunshine. Look for the black carton at the grocery store and learn more at vitalfarms.com.
We are so back, and we're talking about tight ends for cash. So we're going to open up the discussion to talk about our son, Cade Otton, because at this point, that's the only way I know to describe him is like as a proud father.
You're such a weirdo.
he is just someone. Now, Liam Cohen, I also add that Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator of the Buccaneers, came out today and said, quote, "I would love for my son to grow up and be Cade Otton." I mean, that's just...
That is an actual quote, people, by the way.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. The crazier part is that he's actually Cade Otton's birth father, and that's the way that he wanted to announce it to the world. He just wanted to share with everybody.
Oh, this is sick. You're sick.
Cade Otton's very expensive compared to what he's ever been his entire career, 5.5. So, are you paying that price?
So, I think he's in play. And obviously, like, I know he's been good, but I didn't realize like how good he has been since week 3. Here are his ranks among tight ends: targets, first; catches, second; yards, second; fantasy points per game, second. He's got 3 straight games of 10 plus targets. We just talked about this like Bucs wide receiver issue. Who is it? I mean, it's gonna be Cade Otton, right? So like, if you view him as a pass catcher and not like the tight end price tag, he's kind of underpriced. So my inclination is to play Cade Otton. I've seen some builds this week that actually have 2 tight ends for cash. I always get like really sketched out about that. We're going to talk about Taysom Hill in a second. That's the second guy that I've been looking at. So if you have the money, Cade is clearly tight end 1 in cash, but you can't spend on everyone, so it's a decision point.
All right, can I clip that part? Cade is tight end 1 in cash. That is just, it'll never run. He's running way too hot, people, by the way. And
I don't know, man. He's just seeing so many targets. And what's crazy about the Bucs, right? Like, most of the times play callers will shift based off personnel. Oh, like you lose maybe the best touchdown scorer at wide receiver, Mike Evans, no problem. We're going to keep throwing. You lose Chris Godwin, no problem. We're going to keep throwing. They've logged 2 of their highest pass rate over expectations in a single week these last 2 weeks without those guys. So I think the volume's here to stay, man. So I think Cade Otton's a good play. Again, terrified.
You can play Kelsey. I think he's too cheap relative to what he's been doing recently. He's $6K. I hate paying up a ton for tight end because I'm looking at other wide receivers that I want to play. But then, like you mentioned, Cade at 5.5, Kelsey at 6K. Compare them to the wide receivers in that range and ask yourself, am I playing Ladd McConkey at 5.9 or am I playing Travis Kelsey? And I'd rather play Kelsey if I compare based on price and team applied total and all those other things. So Dalton Kincaid at 4.8. I think we'll talk about him more as a tournament play, but I think he is very interesting for his price. And the punt guys this week are Taysom at 4K, Juwan Johnson at 3.3, so on the same team. And then our boy Will Disley is 3.1. You can go there if you want to. I don't know how I feel about 2 tight end. I'll probably wait till on Saturday to see how I feel. But on defense, we talked about it earlier in the week. Like, play the Bears at home, play the Patriots, somebody in that game, and just know that it's going to be really gross. Rookie quarterbacks. So play them or play the Jets. I don't care.
Great advice, Kyle. Kyle doesn't even care about you guys.
I don't
just
even
play who
care.
you want. I don't care. Yeah, real quick on the Bears-Patriots situation. Both offenses, both quarterbacks, as far as, I shouldn't say quarterbacks, because some of this was from Jacoby Brissett, but the offense as a whole, both offenses top 5 in pressure rate allowed, meaning a lot of pressure. It's bad.
It's what Caleb loves to do. He loves to invite
the only
pressure.
quarterback in the league that has a higher pressure to sack ratio than Caleb is Deshaun Watson. And we know how historic that's been. So the Patriots at 2.5 look pretty good. Like I talked about, they might not have either starting tackle in this game. And Caleb has looked lost. And I mean, I think he's probably fine, but also a minor ankle tweak, right? Like there's a lot of ways where it goes really south for Caleb and the Bears this week. So my inclination is to play the Patriots if I need the money. But if you have the money, the Bears against this offensive line from the Patriots looks quite terrible. Before we move on from cash, I wanted to get your thoughts. Do you think you can play Taysom and Alvin Kamara together in the same lineup?
I can't do it. Not against that tough Falcons defense. No, it's not even a team take. It's just I feel like they're cannibalizing each other. It's not a good offense.
It's not a good offense, but who was the starting wide receivers this week? Like, can you actually name them?
I can. I looked at their depth chart today. It's Mason Tipton, Cedric Wilson, and then totally forgot he was on the team until today. MVS.
Marcos Valdes-Scantling is a Saint?
Yeah.
What? Oh my goodness, my mind is blown. I did not know that, genuinely. Okay, so I was looking at a team that I really liked that had them both in it, and I was like, man, I get an uneasy feeling. But then I looked at the numbers, and it's like, the dude saw 5 targets last week and 5 carries. A lot of these guys in the 3K range are a candidate to give you literally zero. Like they could give you a zero. Taysom Hill is not giving you zero if he's getting rushing down work. So my take is that I think it's probably fine. Obviously, it caps your upside, but in cash, you're more concerned about that median outcome anyways. So I wanted to get my take, but I also definitely wanted to hear yours, Kyle, for sure.
I definitely do need to inform you that Taysom Hill has had a history of killing the Falcons. He was the tight end 1 when they played earlier this year. He was the tight end 9. He had 6 carries for 51 yards last year. They use him a lot, and I hate it. Like, I hate him so much. He was 4 for 81 the year before. Oh, man. Taysom Hill has a rich history against the Falcons.
Falcon killer, Taysom Hill. Who knew? Also, real quick, that line, 3.5 points. Like, it seems fishy, but Vegas is projecting a close game here.
It was close. It was 26-24 when they played earlier. They just needed Younghoe Koo to hit a 58-yard field goal. Don't know if you've heard of Younghoe Koo before, but kind of a
couple times.
Kind of a G. All right, moving on.
Stack Attack.
All right, we're going to talk about a couple of different games that we like. And I will say, since we've talked on Tuesday, some of these games have changed a lot in terms of their totals. So a lot of these have been bet up more than I thought. And the first game we're going to talk about is the San Francisco 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The over-under is at 50.5. The 49ers are 5.5-point road favorites, and they're coming off the bye. It's, to me, one of those things where you lean into the 49ers, and I've said this, I think, 5 times this year. When they win, they kill it in the team implied total. I also found this stat. When Brock Purdy wins, so far in his career, when he wins, he has a 7.7% TD rate. That is the highest of any quarterback in the NFL since 2000. Not like this year, but any quarterback. So you know that the touchdowns are going to be flowing. The Buccaneers have been really bad, 31st in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. So for me, it starts with Purdy and just saying, like, I think he's a really, really good piece, and I want multiple 49ers.
For sure. Yeah, I talked about it a little bit, but just think about like how these teams are trending as far as health, rest, all those things. Like, I feel very confident the Niners are scoring points this week. And so I want a lot of exposure in DFS. I bet their team total over. I think it's just a really good spot, right? Like we just talked about the Bucs. They come off a really tough overtime game on Monday night, 83 snaps against Mahomes. Like that adds a lot of stress on a defense, man. Now you have a short week. You take on a Niners team that comes out of their bye week. Their health is trending in the right direction. And it's just a big time advantage here, I think, for the Niners. So yeah, I love Brock. Obviously, he's going to be in the cash conversation like we talked about. So he will be popular in tournaments. I think Debo is probably going to be somewhat popular in tournaments as well. The key to me is trying to figure out like who the second stacking partner is if you're going to double stack Brock Purdy. I have a lot of interest in Kittle. He's just been so good, and I don't think he's going to get played on the slate because of K. Dotton and paying down for Taysom Hill. That to me, he looks like a really interesting tournament play if you're stacking up this game.
Yeah, I've looked at this game a lot, and in the Pace of Play article, I wrote up a bunch of different angles about it, and a lot of what you're calling bets hand in the dirt takes. I mean, I've got them for this game, but Tampa Bay's linebackers have been terrible this year in coverage. So most receptions, most yards, highest completion percentage when they are being targeted. That's a George Kittle special right there. And he's not expensive considering that he's the tight end 1 on the season. Like that's what's most shocking in points per game. He's just been awesome. So he's really good. Brock Purdy's also been really good on play action. Highest yards per attempt in the league. Tampa Bay, highest success rate allowed for play action. So it sets up really well for Brock Purdy. I just think if you're doing a 3 max or if you're doing a 10 or 20, I want to have some combinations where I'm double stacking with Brock Purdy with if it's Debo and Kittle, if it's Juwan and Kittle, if it's Juwan and CMC. Like those are the ways that you can get interesting in this game. And yeah, I think CMC is in play. I really do. Like it's 8K. Nobody's going to play him. Bill Butler, our prices have never been lower. He's only ever going to go up from here. So I don't mind it at all. They've been waiting on him. Some people might worry, are they going to give him enough touches? CMC is one of those players you don't really care. And what was his line for touchdowns? Like minus 215 or something?
Yeah, it was minus 215 on DraftKings as of Thursday. Anytime touchdown, minus 215. Dude hasn't played since last year. He already has those odds. So yeah, look, I think there's probably a situation that exists where maybe he only touches the ball 15 times. But this is Christian McCaffrey with 15 touches, right? And if the field is not going to play it, I would like to play it in tournaments before you see it. I do think there's enough outcomes where it doesn't hit for cash that I probably wouldn't go there in his first game back with the injury and just the unknown.
Yes.
But in tournaments, you're playing for that 80th, 90th percentile outcome anyway. So yes, CMC probably going to come in around like 10-ish%, maybe up to 12, but I don't think he's going to get out of hand. So yeah, in tournaments, fire away, before you see it for sure.
And with Baker, he's been so good this year. And now you're at the point where, like, where does the ball go outside of K. Dot? I mean, they've had to change their target structure. So over the last 3 weeks, only 48% of the targets have gone to wide receivers. That's like bottom 5 in the league. And you've seen this boost for the running backs and, boost for Otten. So with Baker, if you want to play Baker, I think he's going to be less popular than Purdy. So you double stack Baker and you figure out the 49er on the other side that you want to play. So I like Jalen McMillan. The 49ers play a lot of quarters and cover 4, so you're not going to see a lot of deep stuff. You're going to see a lot of underneath routes. Hopefully they move the ball down the field. It's kind of been Baker's MO this year. And then shout out to Scott Barrett. He said the 49ers have the worst passing defense in football when they're blitzing and the best when they don't blitz. So I think what you're going to see is a lot of just sitting back in coverage, asking Baker to pick them apart with, your boy Sterling Shepard and Raheem Jarrett and Ryan Miller. Like, it's just a bunch of dudes. So I don't really have a ton of interest. I'll probably stay away from Baker, just knowing, like, I just think this 49ers team is set up to roll.
Yeah, I think if you're playing Baker, you're pretty much hoping that you get a massive negative game script and he just gets there on volume. It feels tough to sell a positive outlook on this one with, like I said, the bye week for the Niners, the short week, injuries galore everywhere. Like, it just kind of feels like a letdown spot for Tampa. But we've been wrong before on the Bucks, so maybe it hits. The nice thing about him is if you play it, you can get a pretty nice value here. Obviously, K. Dotton, you'd include him, but like one of the wide receivers is going to be cheap, so it's not a lot of salary to allocate. So that's the one positive, but I don't have a ton of interest personally this week.
All right, my Vegas take is that I would either take the under at 50.5 or just take this Niners team implied total.
Niners team total.
All right, moving on. Next game is Minnesota at Jacksonville. This line has changed since we now have the Mac attack, and the Vikings are 7-point road favorites in Jacksonville. The over-under is now at 44. So it feels like a weird game to talk about because it's like, oh man, what are we going to do here? This just means, like, do you want to play Vikings onslaught stacks? Do you want to play Darnold and at least 2 options from the Vikings side? And then kind of ask yourself the question, who do I bring him back with? Is it Brian Thomas Jr.? Is it Evan Ingram? That's kind of the conversation in this game.
Or do we even need to bring back if you think the Jags just
roll,
fall on their face here? Yeah, for me, like, I think I want exposure to the Vikings in most lineups. Like, I mean, just the Jags are they're just that bad, right? And you get Jefferson, you get Aaron Jones. Jordan Addison is interesting. I think TJ Hawkinson is an interesting tournament play if you think he goes up from, it was 42.5% of the snaps last week. Does he get to 60% of the snaps and 75% of the routes? Like, that might be good enough at this salary to get there for tournaments. So I want exposure to the Vikings. I just don't see huge upside from the Jaguars. We're still waiting on Gabe Davis, but like Brian Thomas Jr. has been good, but he had 3 targets last week and a huge negative game script. Like, that is just coaching malpractice. Like, how does that happen when you were trailing the entire game against the Eagles? How does Brian Thomas Jr. have 3 targets without Christian Kirk? Doesn't make any sense. You're not going to be able to run on the Vikings. Like, I think Tank is going to struggle. ETN's going to struggle. I'm not sure how healthy ETN is, right? There's just like so many things working against this offense for the Jaguars. Throw in Mac Jones and it can go south really quick. So for me, my inclination is to not force a bring back and just lean into the Vikings here.
I was ready to give my takes about Trevor Lawrence in this game because he's actually been really good against zone blitzes this year, and that is like Minnesota's bread and butter on defense. And now it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to get a bunch of targets for Evan Ingram underneath. This team is going to crumble. So I just think at the end of the day, like, you don't really mess around. What does Jefferson need to do in this game to pay off in tournaments? So if it's small field or large field, like, what do you need from Jefferson?
I mean, he's almost 9K, and it kind of feels like the floor here is like, I mean, it's not actually, because I know that the floor probably is lower, but it feels
18?
like 16, 17, 18 points is kind of like what you would expect, like at a minimum. But at 9K, like, you're asking him in large field, especially, to put up 30 at this tag.
Yes.
He can do it, but obviously a lot has to go right for that to happen too. So, yeah, I mean, it's an awesome spot, right? It's just a matter of the salary. That's it.
Yeah, and it could be one of those situations where Jefferson gets 25. You're like, oh, that's really, really good. I play him in cash for that, but not getting you there. And let's say Jones gets 20, Hawkinson catches a touchdown, and it's kind of all spread out. So this game is just looking way worse than it did earlier in the week as a game that I want to stack up. But I'd say, so the only way I want to do it is just Darnold, 2 options, and then maybe bring it back with Brian Thomas Jr., and that's it.
Yeah, that's a good take. Mac Jones ruins everything. Come on.
Why? First round pick, Mac Jones. Still getting paid that first round salary, by the way.
I just love how you said that. You were like, man, I was just disappointed in this game, man. Like, I was excited to talk about it. And then Mac Jones had to come in here and ruin the party.
See, if Cade Otton was in this game, I'd be a proud father. Instead, it's Mac Jones. He's not even in my family. So get out of my house, man. I don't want you here.
Watch Mac Jones come out and break the slate. Just watch.
Would you take Minnesota to hit their team implied total? I think you did earlier the week.
25.3? Yeah, we can get there against this Jaguars team. They are getting crushed. So yeah, I think 30 is on the table for Minnesota.
Okay, I think that's what I would take too. Next game is Buffalo at Indianapolis. This game has a 47 over-under. Buffalo -4. So I was thinking about Joe Flacco, as I do a lot of days. I feel like at this point in my life, these are the kind of daydreams that I have. It's like Joe Flacco. When people are against Joe Flacco, that's when this man stands up. Because 5 years ago, not only did we not like Joe Flacco, but it was like, oh, you're ruining all of our fun. We don't even want you in the league. Now we love him. It's just he's coming off a bad performance. So I kind of like him this week because you've kind of seen in his starts what they do in plays per game, what they do in pass rate over expectations. So you can't use the Colts statistics from Richardson and compare. So if you only look at those first 3 starts of Flacco, there's a lot to like here. So I think at the end of the day, I'm kind of in on the Colts more than I thought I would be. They're at home.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, and the Bills defense too, like you think about it, and on the surface, it definitely is a good defense, for sure. So don't hear what I'm not saying. But relatively speaking, compared to what they were doing in the first month of the season to now, they have been worse, again, relatively speaking. Weeks 1 to 4, they were 6th in EPA per dropback. They were 10th in dropback success rate allowed. Since week 5, they're 25th in EPA per dropback. They are 15th in success rate allowed defensively. So they've been worse, and you get a nice, I think, sneaky bounce back spot for the Colts here. They're in the Dome taking on, a Bills defense, on the other side with Josh Allen, the offense that should put up points. Like, I feel pretty confident about that. So I think you're going to get a nice back and forth here. The game total is pretty nice at 47. Like I said, you're in the Dome and a good game environment. So I like this game a lot, way more than I thought. Like, Bills Colts kind of feels like a nasty game environment when you think about it on the surface. But when you dive into the numbers, it actually is very intriguing. So I am with you on that.
Yeah, if you wanted to play Flacco just because you want to feel alive, then you just double stack him. Josh Downs is the obvious play we talked about in cash. His target counts in Flacco games 9, 12, 9, and 9. And for a hand of the dirt take, so much so that this statistic, Andy used it on the main podcast. I always, I don't love giving those because sometimes they don't read them, but he read this one about Josh Downs because he has the highest targets per out run against too high in the NFL. 40% of the time he's targeted on his routes against too high safety looks, and Buffalo uses too high safety at the 4th highest rate in the NFL. In other words, Josh Downs is going to get a ton of targets here. He's a safe play at his price point. He has a ceiling outcome as well. And so I think Josh Downs is probably price sensitive, the best play in this game. Like just what he can do, and you can use him as a bring back, whatever you want to do. If Pittman doesn't play, I do have some interest in Adonai Mitchell because when he's on the field this year, they've been targeting him. Do you know what his targets per out run is this year?
I think it's like north of 30%, isn't it?
It's 36%.
Woo. I mean, small sample because he doesn't run that many routes, but that's still a very good number. That's an elite number.
Yeah, it's very different than what he was in college. And then Alec Pierce obviously is just shoot for the moon, and that's all you're going to get. But what about Jonathan Taylor? Do you feel like people are going to play him this week?
So I think he's probably in that secondary chalk bucket that I kind of talked about with like the Swift Connor types where it's like 12 to 15% maybe, but relative to Kamara and Aaron Jones and those guys, definitely not even close. So yeah, I think he's interesting. I mean, if we think this game can go back and forth and, Jonathan Taylor's getting everything and you get a nice uptick in usage in the pass game with Flacco as opposed to Anthony Richardson, then there's an outcome that exists for Taylor to go bonkers here. So it's been a while since you've seen like a vintage Taylor game. Obviously, you can run on the Bills. So I do think it's kind of a sneaky good Taylor spot. And like I said, he's in that secondary chalk bucket, which for me, I like to attack for tournaments.
So then would you use Taylor as the piece from the Colts side, stay away from the downs chalk, and then at least single stack Allen on the other side?
I think that's how I would play it if I was going to play Taylor. I think for me, it's more of a leverage play off of downs than anything. I'd have to think about that more, though.
Yeah. With Allen on the other side, you've seen the last couple of weeks that they've upped their pass rate. So we're probably not going to get Keon Coleman in this game, but I think there's still enough to see, especially if Cooper is active. Khalil Shakir, I think, is another solid play in this game. The Colts run the third highest rate of zone, and his targets per out run, 32% against zone, and over 3 yards per out run. So he's like their wide receiver one against zone coverage. We haven't seen Cooper with enough snaps so far. So it's hard for me to say like this is what Cooper is. But I think at the end of the day, like with Allen, like you can just stack him with Cooper. And I don't think a lot of people are going to play him, or stack him with Shakir or Kincaid and bring it back with JT. And I think it's a really good spot. Like Josh Allen is going to be awesome. Like he's just always in contention. You're paying up. I don't think he's going to be played a ton this week. So yeah, I like the Bills side too.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's lots to like here. And the thing that's been tricky about the Bills over the last, basically all season really, is just that the wide receiver rotation has been so uncertain. And that was kind of the case all summer with best ball. It was like, is it going to be Curtis Samuel? Is it going to be the rookie Keon Coleman? Maybe Dalton Kincaid's an alpha. All of those things have kind of like come and gone over time. And then you add in Amari Cooper into the mix. Guys are leaving with injury. Like it kind of has been so confusing. But now, if Keon Coleman is out, which it seems very likely that that's the case, and Amari Cooper, we're waiting on him. He missed last week. He still just isn't like part of the game plan for sure. I think now you kind of know who you want to stack with Josh Allen, where that was not the case previously. I think it's Shakir, and I think it's Dalton Kincaid. So it makes those Josh Allen doubles or Josh Allen single stacks, I think, a lot more obvious in my opinion.
Any thoughts about Jimbo Cook here? Because Buffalo is number 2 in adjusted line yards. I mean, both offensive lines are actually really, really good units in this game, but I can see him as being leverage on a couple different players. He's $7K, so he's not cheap, but you think about players like Aaron Jones, James Conner, DeAndre Swift. He is a PPP, if I've ever seen one before.
Love me a good PPP, a little price point pivot. I play James Cook like every week, basically.
You do like playing him a lot.
I just think he's the way he scores on DraftKings especially fits him so well, where you don't need him to have 25 touches. Obviously, I would love that, but he's going to give you, 2 to 5 catches most likely. He's so explosive that he can rip off a long play, and in the run game he can hit big plays. So I love him for the high range of outcomes that he has. Like I almost never play him in cash, but in tournaments he always goes, at like 5 to 10% depending on the week in roster percentage. And right now I'm seeing him right around 5%. So yeah, in tournaments, again, he looks like an awesome play because he definitely has a ceiling.
I thought about making him a slate breaker this week. Like you saw when he was the running back 1 a couple weeks ago against Seattle. He went over 100. He had 2 touchdowns. He added 3 catches, 30 plus DraftKings points. Like those are the kind of games you're talking about. So think of him more as a leverage play in this game. I also don't mind if you just wanted to play James Cook and Josh Downs. And you say, you know what, I know there's going to be a roster percentage on Downs. Not a lot of people are going to be playing Cook. I'm just going to correlate those two, get out of this game, and move on. So any other takes you want to give?
We didn't talk a lot about Dalton Kincaid. You mentioned him like briefly in the cash section. His numbers are so weird. Like 10 targets last week. He had 32 yards. How does that happen? He turned 10 targets into 32 yards. That is embarrassing, Dalton. But he does have a 21+% target share in 5 of the last 6 weeks. So volume is king in fantasy, and he's seeing it. But my goodness, man, do something. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
At 4,900, it's a PPR play, and so with tight ends, it sucks when you are a PPR guy. You're like, sweet, this is great. I get some target share, but he's not a red zone guy. Like, it's like you're going to compete with Dawson Knox. You're going to compete with Josh Allen as a red zone runner. It's like, I don't really know where to put you. You're just, you're in the middle. You're Dennis Pitta. You're just a PPR dude who's never going to score.
That's a throwback there. Dennis Pitta. I haven't heard that name in years.
The one hit of Dennis Pitta. He's the man. He was the man with PPR, and yet he'd never score, ever.
Yeah. Pour one out.
I will take in this game, I think I would take the over.
You feeling all right?
Well, Indianapolis is number one in neutral pace. We've seen Buffalo up their pass rate. There's a lot to like here, man.
I will take the Bills -4. It's why, I mean, we don't really actually bet spreads and totals because it's so hard to win. But like, isn't it wild to see Josh Allen, who might win the MVP this year, is only favored by 4 points against Joe Flacco? Like, just like the simple in me, I'm like, seems like a good bet, which means it's probably wrong.
There's somebody listening to this podcast like, what do you mean? I've been literally betting every single take that you have with your Vegas takes for a year. Okay, guys, Vegas
I wonder
takes
how that would go.
Vegas takes is a chance for us to say, this is how I see the game going, and therefore this is how I'm building. But yeah, we would say that sides and totals is a losing market for the most part.
Sure is.
Just for losers, you know?
I mean, I would love to be good at it, and I would love to model it and those things, but it's the hardest market in sports betting to beat, period. So I'm not going to bother.
Yeah, my model is I look at the spreadsheets and say, okay, I might bet the under of a 50-point game. That's about it.
And that model is working, buddy.
That model is working. So take a quick break. Be right back.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Need a holiday gift that will keep her sparkling all year long? Blue Nile, the original online jeweler, has experts on hand 24/7 who can help you find the perfect piece. Beyond that, Blue Nile makes the gifting experience easier than ever, with guaranteed free shipping and returns, as well as a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Right now, get 30% off jewelry at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com for 30% off. BlueNile.com.
All right, we got one more game. Don't worry, we're going to talk about it. New York Jets at the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are 1-point favorites. I'm not telling people what to bet, but I would bet Jets money line on this game.
I love it. Not even 2 minutes ago, you just said,
exactly.
I mean, we don't bet sides and totals. It's a hard market to beat. But if I was going to bet it, I would take the Jets.
The Cardinals are a weird team, man.
So are the Jets, though, right? I mean, one half they look like one of the worst teams in football. The other half, they look incredible. So you never know what you're going to get.
I think with this game, I'm not really interested in stacking up the quarterbacks. I'm not playing Aaron Rodgers. Okay. I'm terrified to play Kyler Murray because there are some games where he breaks off a run and he gets you 50 plus yards. There's other games where he runs for 6. And I believe Kyler had 4 fantasy points last week. Like, it was something like absurdly low, and they won the game. They scored 26 points. So I think what I'm interested in this game is the running backs. We talked about them in cash. Brees at 7.6, James Conner at 6.5. If you want to play either of those, like if you want to do Conner and Garrett Wilson, and you say this game goes off and those are the key pieces, totally fine with that. If you wanted to do Brees and say that Marv gets loose or McBride, that he finally catches a touchdown in the end zone, I'm fine with that too. But that's like, I'm just not stacking up this game, man. Don't pressure me.
You don't have to. I think Connor's a really good one-off if you wanted to just get out of there with him. Talked about him a little bit in cash. Brees, nothing negative to say about him. But if you did want some leverage on him, I do think Rodgers stacks are at least interesting.
Okay.
And it's what does he do at his price, right? He's 5,700. So, like, you're never asking Rodgers to give you a 30 ball or 35. Like, it's just not going to happen. But can he give you 22-ish points and be viable on the slate? I think it's possible. And the nice thing about the stacks with Aaron Rodgers is you absolutely know who to stack him with. There's no question. It's only Garrett Wilson. It's only Devontae Adams. In week 9, Brees and those two running backs saw almost 80% of his targets. So there is not a third option right now. So it's clean. You know where it's going, and I think it's going to project pretty well because Wilson's, 7,200, Devontae's 7K. Like, they're not free, they're not cheap by any means, but Rodgers is cheap, and you're going to get a lot of leverage on Brees. So I do have some interest in certain builds and game scripts where I think it makes sense, but it's definitely not on my priority list. I'll say that.
You're saying they're not going to give the ball to Malachi Corley anymore?
For our big dog team, we would really need that.
Betz every single week checks in on a team that we drafted on Underdog together. He's just hoping, just praying. We're
peaking at the right time, man.
This team is
late
so
season
bad.
upside. Late season upside. We got Brock. We got Rodgers. They're in great spots this week. We got Gibbs who's smashing. We got Tank Dell who's coming to life. We got Demarcus Robinson who, apparently is Randy Moss these days. I mean, we're peaking at the right time, dude. We got Kittle. Positivity, Kyle. Positivity.
We had some okay calls on that team. We have Garrett Wilson. So
Garrett Wilson leads the NFL in targets.
Yeah, he's been good for the last month for best ball, but he was not good for the first 6 weeks or whatever.
I'm just saying, brother, we're peaking at the right time.
I'm not really as interested in this game. Marv is impossible to figure out, and it's impossible to figure out with Kyler. So I think with this game, I'm just going to play the running backs as one-off. That's it. I'm staying away from the Garrett Wilson chalk and just playing the running backs as one-off.
I think that's fine. I think if that's your take, that's fine. I definitely have interest in Devontae, and I have interest in Garrett Wilson just because the Cardinals are a good matchup and you know where the ball goes. But yeah, this slate's interesting, right? Because we're talking about this as one of the quote unquote top games because of the total, but even this one, I'm like, I could see where this goes south.
And there's only 10 games, so at the end of the day, it's
right.
You're gonna have to pick some game, and then some of these were already crossing off the list. No way. So I could be dead wrong about this game, but my Vegas take, I already told you, Jets money line.
Jets money line. Take it to the bank. Put the mortgage on it. You're gonna be fine. I will take Cardinals team total under in this one.
Yeah, I think I took that on Tuesday. I took under their team.
I think you did.
Yep. All right, moving on.
Slate Breaker of the Week.
I have a great sponsor that you have never heard of, Betz, but I am selfishly going to talk about it. It is the Thai restaurant right down the road from me, Dan Thai, that I love a good takeout, and my wife does too. Oh, man. Just love some Thai food. However, every year at this time of the year, they close the store and they've done either renovations or they've done a family trip back to Thailand. They're closed for the next month. So what am I going to do? Yeah.
I don't know. How could they afford an advertising spot on this podcast if they're out of business for a month? My goodness.
They just love this segment so much. Dan Thai.
They had to get it.
Yeah, man. It's not. It's actually, and the reason why they're renovating is because it's not a good looking restaurant. It's a hole in the wall place, but those are usually the best.
I was gonna say that's usually where you find the best food.
What's y'all's takeout? You don't have to. I mean, you can name drop, of course, if you want to fish for a sponsor. But what's the takeout situation?
I mean, we have a bunch that we loved when we lived in Vermont. We had a ton of good ones there. We haven't found really good takeout around us here, which has been. It's been tough, but you know what always comes through? That Chili's curbside, baby. I mean, that is, you can't miss. You cannot miss with that.
Just eat it in the car.
You can't wait to get home. It's so good.
All right. My slate breaker of the week is a player who is expensive. Okay, so you're not scrolling down for this player. You're seeing him at the top. It is Saquon Barkley. He's a running back, and he plays football for the Philadelphia Eagles, who are playing against the Dallas Cowboys, who are, quote, a defense in the NFL. They're dead last in PFF's rushing grades, dead last in EPA per rush, and Philly's offensive line is third in adjusted line yards. They've been awesome. So it's one of the bigger advantages. If you want to put your hands in the dirt, look at the trenches and see the big guys up front, the hog mollies up front. It's Philly's offensive line. So I think Saquon, I'm looking through our roster percentage right now. It's like people are going to be playing Aaron Jones, Swift, Connor, Kamara, Hall, Bijan. All of these players are going to be way ahead of Saquon. So he's kind of in that 10% range that I like, because you look at our projections, you go, wait, this player is projected for the most points of any running back this week. Why is nobody playing him? It's just a price thing. So instead of paying up for Justin Jefferson or Kamara, I think he's a great pivot, and they have a 25-point team implied total. So smaller slate, I want raw points, and I think Saquon can get to 25 or 30 points.
Yeah, they should have a lot of success here, and running back specifically against the Cowboys has been fantastic. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And with the Dak news, the spread is in favor, obviously, of the Eagles. So you could certainly see a positive game script for Saquon. So it makes a ton of sense. I'm going to keep it simple this week. I don't have a lot of fancy numbers. My hands are not in the dirt, Kyle. But I love the Niners. And so when I think about how does Brock Purdy hit his ceiling, it's almost certainly going to be through Debo. So I think Debo is my slate breaker this week. He's 6,900 on DK. He is 8,300 on FanDuel. And I already talked about the team total, the rest advantage, like just all the things. And I didn't even mention it at this segment either, but we did or I shouldn't say we. I was a small part of this, okay, Kyle, on the main show this past week. You guys did on, I think it was Monday's show. Maybe it was Tuesday. Monday or Tuesday. Go back and listen. The red zone regression candidates. The Niners lead the NFL in red zone plays per game, yet they are bottom 6 in conversion of touchdowns. That is going to swing back in their favor at some point, and I want to be there for that explosion. So I think this week it happens with the Niners, so give me Debo as the slate breaker.
Yeah, Tampa Bay secondary is one that you pick on. They're allowing the most completions in the NFL and second most to outside wide receivers. So Debo is one of those plays this week that people are going to play him. And I think when we say he's a slate breaker, I want to be overweight this player. I want to have a ton of exposure because his price is so great. It's like a couple weeks ago, it was Achane. I picked a slate breaker, and it's like, I know he's going to be popular, but I'm going all in on this player. So I like to call a lot with Debo. Moving on.
It's time for Borg versus Betz, presented by DraftKings.
All right, you don't have a sports book? No problem. You can play DraftKings Pick 6 with us. Last week, we went a combined 3-1, and still, the boys are cooking this season. Betz is at 10-7. I am at 13-5, which is flying pretty close to the sun. I won't say that like props is like my best trait in life, but
this record, you could fool me.
I'm a Pick 6 fiend apparently this year. The first one I will take is the aforementioned Dalton Kincaid, a player that Betz once laughed at because he had 32 yards last week. I get it. I will be taking Dalton Kincaid more on the 42.5 receiving yards. If Amari Cooper's out, this looks even better, but I'm fine with him in. Indianapolis is allowing the most tight end receptions in the NFL. They've allowed 3 straight to hit this mark, and 5 of the last 7, and the 2 that didn't were Brenton Strange and Chigakonkwo. RIP Chigakonkwo. So Kincaid more than 42.5 receiving yards.
You better hope he gets 20 targets to hit this, brother, because 10 targets for 32 yards last week. You do the math. No, I'm kidding. It makes a lot of sense. I'm going right back to the well. Justin Herbert, more than 222.5 pass yards. I played this, I think it was last week or the week before, but he's been over this mark in 4 straight games since the bye. I just don't think the market has caught up to the pass rate that LA has right now. Don't look now. Giro and the boys are second in pass rate over expectation over the last month. They were pretty much dead last in the first month. So they came out of the bye and said, oh, we have Justin Herbert. Let's throw. You get Tennessee, which is a good defense, but they've got really key defensive injuries. Most notable, L'Jarius Sneed, one of their safeties, is on IR as well. So they have key pieces out. And over the last 5 weeks, Tennessee is 20th in EPA per dropbacks. Give me the more on Justin Herbert's passing yards this week.
And I don't know if you saw DJ Chark not listed on the Week 10 injury report.
Oh, baby. Now we're cooking.
I love DJ Chark. I like that one a lot. I'm going to throw out Ramondre Stevenson, less than 71.5 rushing and receiving yards. So that's the combo of those two. Regrande has been an inefficient plotter the last couple weeks. 2.2 yards per carry in his last 3. He hasn't hit this mark in 5 of his last 6 games. The only thing you can do on the Bears is you can run the ball, but right now the Patriots are road dogs. This doesn't set up well, especially in the receiving game. You might think like, oh, he gets a ton of receptions. Go back and look through Ramondre's reception stuff. When he gets 2 or 3, it's like I almost took the under of his receiving yards, which is at 17.5. He's been under that a ton, but I'm going to take a higher line, 71.5 less on his rushing and receiving yards.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Just a gross game environment with the Patriots and the Bears. I'm also going to take a less. This one's really painful because like when you hear the number, you're going to be like, how does he not hit this? But I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr. less than 45.5 receiving yards. It's a low line, but he's been under this in 6 of 9 games this year. Now he gets the Jets. We know that their strength is on the perimeter of the secondary. They're 4th in YPA allowed. They're allowing the 2nd lowest completion percentage. And we know the Cardinals want to run the football with James Conner, and this is the matchup to do it. So I will take less than 45.5 on Marv.
All right. You think that I'm going to end it right here, but I got a bonus for you people. I've got 2 kicking props that I have here, and Betz is just shaking his head. Why the hell would you submarine this segment to talk about kickers?
We're having a good show, man. Now you're going to ruin it with kicking props.
All right, this is a little bonus one. Matt Gay, kicker for the Colts. His kicking points line is 6.5, so I will take the more because he's, in his last 5 has been at 10, 8, 10, 8, 7. He's been over this line in 5 straight games. He's at home. It's in a dome. Take the more than 6.5.
Is that analytics?
For the kickers, it is.
In 5 straight, so he has to hit it again. Analytics, baby.
Dude, give me this game that we both said we really like. Well, I'm going to,
you know
what? I'm going to make this an official, and I'm going to send it out to everybody in our DFS pass.
And I will alert right after. Don't play this. This is a trap. Right after you alert the over, I'm going to alert the under, and people are going to be like, wait, what?
Oh, man. That was Borg versus Betz presented by DraftKings Pick 6. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code BALLERS.
Ballers.
That's code BALLERS for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Betz, it's Friday. Tell the people to have a good weekend.
Oh, man, Friday. I kind of forgot it was Friday. Great weekend ahead. Lots of interesting football. We have a beautiful Germany game with Bryce Young, Daniel Jones. So we'll play some showdown for that. And then we got a great main slate ahead. Best of luck to all of you out there this weekend. Hopefully you win some money. And we'll catch you next week on Tuesday. Have a great week.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.